Hello everyone and welcome back to Liquid Evil Gaming. So today I'm going to be doing a brief overview / review of the Noppoo Lolita Spyder 10 keyless keyboard with Kailh blue mechanical switches. Now, if you're not familiar with this keyboard, it's what's considered one of the better budget entry-level mechanical keyboards, and it can be commonly had for $60 to $65. Which for a mechanical 10 keyless board is pretty cheap. Now, what is a Kailh switch? And that's going to be the focus of much of this video besides an overview and review. Well, if you look right here, see if I can get that into the camera. That is a Kailh switch. As you can see, the key stem looks very similar to a Cherry MX Blue. And if you push on it, it's a little bit louder and a little bit stiffer. I'd say almost somewhere between a Cherry MX Blue and a Cherry MX Green. So it is a pretty decent little switch. The only issue with Kailh switches, of course, is the fact they are a Chinese knockoff of Cherry MX switches. So their long-term reliability is still fairly unproven, though I have had no problems with this keyboard myself so far. Now, these are not the stock keycaps on this particular board. These are blue double-shot injected ABS keycaps. The stock ones are black laser etched, but I changed these out because the printing on them does not wear off. But the keyboard itself is nice. The cable, unfortunately, is not detachable. However, it does have a cable routing system on the bottom of the board, as you can see there. Keyboard is very heavy, very rigid, very well built. And thus far, I do like it, but there are definitely, like I said, looser manufacturing tolerances in the Kailh switches as opposed to the Cherry MX switches. So they are quite a bit stiffer than you would expect for a blue switch. Now, by contrast, down here, I have my Cooler Master Quickfire Rapid, which has Cherry MX Blue switches. And sorry, the focus on this camera really sucks. Now, that's a Cherry MX Blue switch. You can see they look very similar, and if you go ahead and push it, it's a little bit softer. It still makes that click, but it doesn't take quite as much actuation force as the Kailh switches do. So the Kailh switches on this more budget board here is definitely a nice little board, but they are a little bit stiffer, and they do feel somewhere in between blues and greens as far as comparing them to Cherry MX switches. So do bear that in mind, although, you know, manufacturing tolerance can change a little bit batch to batch. The keyboard itself, as I said, is very well built. It does use Cherry MX stabilizers, so you don't have to deal with the whole wire clips and everything else if you want to change out the keycaps, which I personally prefer that. Some people don't. You've got your basic lights right here for caps lock and num lock. The keyboard is not backlit. And I know that word Lolita may bother some people, but I'm sure you could probably sandpaper it off or remove it somehow if it really bothers you that much. But how many people are going to be looking at the keyboard besides you, honestly? I mean, you're going to have 30 people over all staring at your keyboard and then judging you. I personally don't think so, but whatever. The keyboard has a fairly lengthy USB cable. It is not braided. It is just rubberized, but it is fair in length, and the cable routing system, I have it pushed off to the side. The keyboard itself, I would definitely recommend it for a beginner's keyboard, but do bear in mind one of the biggest drawbacks with Kailh switches at this point is that because they're still relatively new. You know, some of the brands have switched over to their own private labeled Kailh switches, like such as Razer. Razer switches are actually rebranded Kailh switches. But in this particular case, the company Noppoo is not as well known in the US as it is in China. So if you have a warranty issue, you're going to have some serious trouble getting help, as you'd have to send your keyboard, as far as I'm aware, all the way back to China to get warranty service, which at that point, between the weight and the cost, you may be better off just replacing it. So you better hope that you get a decent one, or deal with a seller on Amazon, such as Chorus Keyboard, and no, I'm not getting a kickback for saying this, or someone similar of that nature who will work with you if the board is DOA, will probably just swap it out for you so you don't have to worry about it. But going down the line, if you have issues, your mileage may vary. Whereas boards with the Cherry MX switches come from brands like Cooler Master, where if you have a warranty issue, generally speaking, you can feel pretty safe that you're going to get that issue covered, taken care of, because you can ship it to a center in the US to get it repaired or replaced. But that is something different that you're going to pay as far as budget, because this Cooler Master board, I believe when I got it was about $100, not counting the custom PVD caps. Whereas by contrast, like I said, the Noppoo Lolita was only about $60-65. So not quite double, but 35% or so jump in price, 40% thereabouts. So do bear that in mind. You are paying, for the difference in the cost of the switches and the difference of the companies too. Kailh switches tend to be more plentiful, easier to come by, and are cheaper, as Cherry MX switches, they simply can't keep up with production, but you are getting that long-term proven reliability of the switch. With Kailh switches, you just, you really don't know long-term. I personally have had a very enjoyable experience. As you can hear, they're nice and clicky, very consistent across the board. Which actually is something I noticed compared to the Cherry switches that was very nice, is they are fairly consistent key to key. Even though they are heavier than they should be, they are fairly consistent. Whereas with my Cherry MX board, you go key to key and it can be very differing. As you can hear, some of them are softer and heavier. I don't know if you can pick that up on the mic, but trust me, there is a fair variance sometimes from key to key. And I've actually noticed less of that with the Kailh switch, much to my amazement, considering. But, that said, this is my one unique experience with my own board. Your mileage may vary. So would I recommend it? Yes, as long as you know what you're getting into. Like I said, bear in mind the Kailh switch is still a relative newcomer compared to Cherry MX, but the discount is reflected in that. Do your research, go online, make sure it's a brand and a model that people have bought before and comes at least fairly highly recommended. This is a pretty well-known one along the mechanical keyboard community, and it is, it's got that nice clicky-clacky feel, and it comes with different switch types. You can get the blacks, you can get the reds, you can get the blues. Beyond that, I'm not sure what else, but those ones I know for sure. I think they make a brown variant as well. So it's a great entry-level board if you want a 10 keyless at a reasonable price that is very hefty and well-built. But yeah, that's a brief comparison, comparing a Noppoo Lolita Spyder to a Cooler Master Rapid. Pretty big price gap between the two of them. Gives you a brief overview of Cherry compared to Kailh switches and what to expect if you're looking into a budget Kailh mechanical switch keyboard such as this one. Let me know down in the comments. Are you considering buying this board? Have you seen it on Massdrop or Amazon or places like that? And consider it for a price. Did you buy one? Are you going to buy one? And are you still on the hunt for your first mechanical board? Be sure to like, comment, rate, and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Have a good one, everyone.